Welcome back to Allergic to Stupidity. It's so nice to see everybody again. Please remember, if you're enjoying these videos, to like, share, and subscribe. Let's make our community even bigger. Now, a couple of points today in this little chit chat. The first one is, if you remember, I was doing the 3-month experiment to see exactly how much money I was spending every single month on food. And when I got October's, I will be honest, I was like, oh dear God, because I had no idea. You go and get some groceries and you bring them in the house. You don't really realize exactly how much you're spending. October, if we remember, it was $913. And that had Thanksgiving in it. But I still went, oh dear God, that's almost $1,000. But it gave me a baseline to work from. And then November went with $985, which was up by a good $70. And that went, okay, this is reinforcing the cost of groceries is going up. But I did have one meal, semi-big meal in November, but not really that much. So that one was a little surprising. And then I just calculated, and then I get to throw these all out. December's. Now remember, December, it's Christmas, and I had ragu for the night of putting the Christmas tree up, and then I had Christmas dinner, and then I had New Year's Day, which all that food was bought in December. And that came to, with the receipts I have, $1,187. Now, in there, I know that there's a couple times that people didn't put the receipts in the bucket, my little basket. So I'm going to say that for December, it literally is probably closer to $1,300, if not $1,400. Just because I know people forgot to put their receipts in the basket. So I'm just going to ballpark it up a little bit. But that's not bad. It was still more money than I was expecting that I spent on food for in the house. Okay, this, like I've said before, this does not count to taking you out for a Timmy's or a stopping for some food at McDonald's or things like that. And yeah, it actually is a Timmy's cup. It's none of that, doesn't include any of that. It's just the food that's bought to be used in the house. So that stayed consistent in the 3 months. So I was honestly comparing apples to apples, one of my pat lines. So that's not bad. Now, the other experiment, that experiment started in October. So October, November, December. And the next experiment was something I'd seen on Sensible Money Mom. She's out of the U.S., down south, some of the southern states. And she was going to attempt zero food waste. So I went, okay, I can try that. Well, I've chit-chatted on here about how well that went with me in December. It was not a success. The raccoon saw a lot of food. But in part of doing that, Christmas was over, so I was cleaning out the merry-go-round. Because merry-go-rounds, from an organizational standpoint, can be very frustrating because things get stuck into the middle and you forget them. So one of the things I realized, now none of this has gone bad, but half of what was in that merry-go-round was things I didn't realize we had, so we bought a second jar or a second bottle or a second thing. And so I've taken everything out and I'm going to put it in my fruit cellar and slowly use it up. I'm not throwing it out. And then the other one was, and I mentioned it with Liquidation Marie, out of Montreal, who sells things that are almost at expiration date or past expiration date. And everybody knows it. And she's checked with the health people in Quebec, and they said it's fine. That best before, like I said in that other video, is a guideline. And it gives a cutoff date of when you can return or you have to accept in return kind of mentality. But that's it. So with that in mind, I had found 5 or 6 bottles that I was going to pitch because they were past date, so they're garbage. And I thought, lady, no, they're not garbage. They haven't gone bad. They haven't anything. And if it's preserved, I threw out a lot of preserved jams because this past summer because they were 10 and 15 years old, and you could just see they hadn't gone moldy, but they were sugaring out. So they're right. So it's like the raccoons had a lot of jam this summer. So this January, I'm finding I'm not. Now, concede, guys, it's the 4th. It's just the 4th. But I'm making a point of, instead of saying, what am I having? I'm going to the fridge. I'm going, okay, what's in there to eat? And making a point of figuring out what I'm having for supper from what's in the fridge. Now, the advantage here is, because this is really sort of a rooming house, everybody comes and goes. The only two that really cook together are my son and his kid. And they will bring me in and say, do you want us to cook you something? Because they will bring us. But generally speaking, everybody fends for themselves in the kitchen. I just supply them with the kitchen and a fridge, and I keep the dishes clean. That's my job as the landlady. So that does encourage food getting put in the fridge, and then people forget about it. So I'm making a point of trying to stay ahead of that. We'll see how January goes on that zero food waste project. We'll let you know when first week of February comes. The other half of my chit chat today is, as I was getting back into listening to the news, because the new year is here, and listening to people's evaluation of Donald Trump and all his threats of taking over Panama Canal and Mexico, tariffs on Mexico, and making Canada the 51st state, and acquiring Greenland. I'm going, it's not like acquiring a house, guys. You're talking about a country. And I've always just gone, he's serious, but he's looking at it from a business standpoint, where I'm going to acquire those stocks, or I'm going to acquire that business. And not realizing that these are not things we can just acquire. There are other countries. They're sovereign countries. And every country has literally gone, take a walk. This is not happening. But as I listened to the evaluation from various journalists and political experts and other people who are more into that world than I am, I just sit back and listen. I suddenly thought, I've always said, he reminds me of the bully in the playground. And I always don't have to apologize, but please remember, I am a teacher, so all my analogies have to do with the school ground in some way or shape or form. But he's always reminded me of the bully in the playground. And as I was listening to that, about him wanting to acquire this and getting that person on his side and that person on his side, and you're going to do it my way, it reminds me of the gangs we get in high schools, where there is one leader and he gently prods and pressures other kids to hang out with him and do what he wants. And then his little gang gets bigger, and then they start doing the same thing. And in elementary panel, the kids will actually get down and push other kids. By the time they get to high school, they get a little more sophisticated, and they will pressure other people to isolate somebody they don't like. So gang A wants person Z to join their gang or do something for them. And he's going, no, I'm not doing it. So then they will go to other people M, N, O, and P kind of that group and say, well, don't hang out with him. He's dumb and he's stupid and he's whatever. And so they will pressure people or psychologically and emotionally bully other people to isolate that person. And that's what Donald Trump's doing. He's pushing and pressuring people to do things his way so he can get his gang bigger. And the more I thought of it, the more I thought he's a boomer. He's late 70s. Definitely older than my brother. And he's stuck back in that world that his father started, the original Trump business, in that you go around acquiring businesses. He's also stuck in the business mentality. You go around acquiring other businesses or acquiring shares or stocks or whatever. And that's not what we are. We're countries. So he honestly feels that he should be able to pressure other countries to join him because he's the big one. And we're the United States, and nothing against my American friends. But it's that mentality. We're the biggest country, and we have the biggest economy, and we've got the biggest armed forces. So you want to be with us. Well, just like that little kid in the playground who's going, no, I don't. Countries are starting to stand up and go, no, we don't want to be part of your gang. And he doesn't understand that because that's the mentality his father lived in. Nothing against Fred, but that was just 100 years ago. Think colonialism. And it's worked before. It's worked in the past. Why is it not working now? And his darling friend, Putin, is doing that with Ukraine. So he's thinking this should work. And why wouldn't everybody want to be the U.S.'s best friend? Well, if you want to be my friend, then you're going to do what I want you to do. Times have changed. And people are going, we don't want to play that game anymore. We want to play ball by following the international rules that were set down after World War II. And those rules have changed over time. That's the thing, because times have changed. But those rules are there to keep, my analogy is, to keep the ball going down the center of the bowling alley, your bumper pads on your bowling alley, or the bumper pads on mini carts. Just to keep you in line and not let anybody get off kilter. And yet he doesn't understand why we have to stay there. But the rest of the world's going, we'll go find somebody else to play ball with. Which, as a teacher, that's what we tell the kids, and the elementary kids. High school kids, we tend to pull them into the office a little faster if we discover about the bullying, because unfortunately they often do it off ground, and then our hands are tied. But in the elementary panel, we always say, you know what, if he's not playing by the rules, go find somebody else to play with. And we'll tell them all, and the next thing we know, that bully is by himself. And we've already talked to the bully and said, look, buddy, you're not following the rules. The rules are there for a reason, to keep everything fair and even. And I'm finding that's what, like Trudeau did last time. The last time Trump was in, and he started with all this tariffs because we were, quote, a threat to the United States because we burnt the White House down. Quote marks here again, because we weren't a country in 1812. But Trudeau went, fine, you don't want to play ball that way, we're going this way. And he started to strengthen our trade relationships with the UK, because Brexit was in the middle of happening. We are part of the Commonwealth. Strengthened our trade agreements with the EU. So instead of falling into bending over backwards for the bully, not really a bully, but the guy who wants it done his way, Trudeau went, no, I'll go someplace else. And that's exactly what the president of Mexico has done. Is, no, you're not doing that. We're not agreeing to that. And if you want to play ball that way, we're going this way. You want to throw 25% tariffs on us? We can throw tariffs on you too, and we'll just go trade with somebody else. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and which way this goes as the 2025 evolves, because it's going to be interesting to see how he reacts, because his right-hand man, Elon Musk, thinks the same way. I should just be able to pressure people into doing what I want. And he pressured it's now X, into getting that. And he pressured them into an agreement to sell it. Twitter? Yeah. I can't remember the name of the old company. How do you like that? And then he wanted to back out the last minute. And he wasn't allowed to. So he took it and changed it. And now it's X. And he just thinks he should be able to pressure. And California wanted to put taxes on him. Environmental taxes on him. And he got mad. How dare you? I'll go someplace else. And they went, yeah, fine, go. They said, you don't want to work here following our rules? Leave. So Musk has got that same kind of mentality. I should be able to pressure and make people do what I want them to do. So it was just interesting as I clued in today or watched or realized or put together how much Donald Trump reminds me, and his mentality behind doing things and getting things is very much like the high school leader of the gang. Because in reality, outside of not just being a high school teacher, having been a high school kid myself, often the leader of the gang can't do anything himself. He needs all those people around him to make him look good. So somebody I know didn't like him in high school. I still don't like him. Unfortunately, he's still sort of in my life. Would strut himself around about how wonderful he was, and this was his gang, and they did this and they did that. And I'm quietly thinking, no. And we all went the same thing. We don't like you. And how stupid do you think we are? We'd all go, no, you didn't. We all knew he didn't do anything. He would get friend A and friend B and friend C to do it. He actually started on the side hustle, kind of a little job with cars. Well, he couldn't do any of it. He got all his friends to do it. And then he took credit for it. Well, isn't that Donald Trump doing the same thing? Look at me, aren't I wonderful and fantastic? But he's putting people into his cabinet. Some of them I'm quietly going, oh, dear God, help us. That will do what he wants them to do. He can't do it, but he'll get other people to do it and make him look good. And then if it falls apart, he can blame them. So not really that much different than the leader of the bully gang in high school at all. There you go. Those are just my thoughts about the evolving world that we are living in right now. Anyways, guys, take good care of yourself. You can see that it's not too cold out today. It's relatively nice for a January day. Have a good week, and we'll see you tomorrow.